Hey everyone, this is Patrick. Thank you for tuning in this week. I'm solo and I have a lot to cover. I'm really excited to share a few things with you guys. And listen, it's this is the episode after Thanksgiving. Hope you guys had an amazing Thanksgiving and were able to celebrate just the amazing things that we all have around us. And there's a saying that I've come to love this year, which is trading expectations for appreciation. I'm going to get into a lot of that today. Hope you guys had a great break. And it's hard to believe that we're coming to the end of the year and the end of the season on entrepreneurship. But I've had a good time, and I want to really just kind of unload on everyone just my the experiences I've had this year that have revolved around this topic. But we still have a few more guests left, so it's not going to be the last episode, and I'll probably do a conclusion to the season. But I have a few more guests. My good friend Craig Ballantyne, the author of the Perfect Day Formula. For those of you who have read my book, I talk about the story behind kind of how the book came to light, and Craig's couple day workshop was instrumental in kind of initiating those thoughts and feelings and drive and motivation to the book. But also we have a local CEO of a local company. One of my guys, Ben Curtis, just an amazing friend, and one of the executives here at Paradigm. He knows everybody. It seems like, and so we both about a year ago bought this backpack from Nomadic, and I've seen them everywhere. And I got to travel a lot this year, and there's a lot of people even internationally that have Nomadic backpacks. So the CEO is and the founder is going to join us next week. So it's gonna, or I'll see you next week, the week after. So we have him on there, and then a few more guests. I think we have more than the actual weeks are. So we're gonna probably do a couple in a week. But anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed it. The purpose of doing this is just as much to benefit me as it is to benefit you, because I'm on this journey as well, and I know you guys tuning in and the feedback that we get just around the notion of entrepreneur. It doesn't relate to those that are already entrepreneurs. I think there's like an entrepreneur bug in everyone. There's this, I would say, seed in us that's there that we can nourish and nurture, and then once it becomes a plant, we can prune it and ultimately get fruit from it. It's one of those things where it's not this overnight thing. I think there's some entrepreneurial perspective out there that you get these insanely successful results, the fruit, without ever having to plant a seed and multiple seeds and nourish the soil, make sure it's in the right soil, and prune and fertilize and weed. And there's a whole process to it, and I think it's a never ending process, right? The whole idea of infinite game. It's this never-ending process of improving ourselves, expanding, providing more value to others. So I've had a great time, and I want to, as I mentioned, just talk about some of the things that have been going on with me, some of the experiences I've had, my breakthroughs, and before I do that, I'm going to kind of introduce the next season for the Well Standard podcast, and we have a lot of stuff that we could talk about, and I felt it appropriate to talk more practical things. I mean, we've spent essentially 2 years being very philosophical. The 2018 is with the year that my book came out, and we got into the notion of life, that you are your best asset. We got into liberty, the pursuit of independence, the pursuit of freedom, and then property, right? Coming from John Locke's writings and his philosophy back in the late 1700s. But then we get into this year, right? And we talk capitalism. Capitalism is very philosophical, and then we're into entrepreneurship, right? Which is also kind of an idea. So for 2020, we're going to kick off the first season talking about investments and wealth strategy. Now it's going to be different. Uh, Obviously, I don't do anything really mainstream. Mainstream's boring, and mainstream really never works either. Anyway, especially in the long run. But my take on it is going to be atypical investments, atypical wealth strategy. I have just an incredible opportunity to network and rub shoulders with so many amazing people, and I run across all sorts of different types of investments that are fascinating. So it's amazing what people come up with as far as value propositions and how they monetize that, how they raise capital, how they create investments, how they get others to invest. So we're going to have, definitely several months of just talking about different investments, alternative investments, atypical investments, as well as wealth strategy. And I really wanted to weave in the ideas that we've been talking about the last couple of years around entrepreneurship, pursuing financial independence, what that means, and how does investment relate to you as an individual, your business, how you produce and how you generate revenue. Because I think I know that success will come from them being hand in hand, as opposed to contrary. And there has to be this kind of balance between the two, because in the end, if a person has tons of money and they have tons of investments, and they're earning income every single month, without the ability to produce value to somebody else, to provide, to contribute, to give back, to grow who you are and be more valuable to other people. That's when life is really sad for most. There's that saying that Tony Robbins uses, which is success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I believe that fulfillment comes from understanding who we are and being of benefit to somebody else, regardless of how financially free we are with investments and wealth. So I think they go hand in hand, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, because I saw evidence of that all over the place. I hope you guys have had a chance to read it. If you haven't, headsortailsiwin.com, or also you could also go to the book website, or sorry, the podcast website, which is thewealthstandard.com, and there's links on there to purchase it. So we're going to get a lot into investment strategy, wealth strategy, atypical investments. Hope you guys are ready for that, because I have some really cool people that I've met along the way, and plus some others that I would really like to interview that have some cool just angles on making investments, insuring investments, due diligence. We have a good friend of mine, Mauricio, who's been on the show in the past. He is an attorney, and specializes in syndication, raising capital, and sees all sorts of investments. But at the same time, he sees lots of ways in which people, syndicate, raise money, and do it the wrong way, and get themselves in trouble, and subsequently get a lot of other people in trouble by losing their money. Anyway, we're going to get into the legal side of things. We're going to get into how to do due diligence. We're going to get into some just weird, interesting types of investments that you probably have never heard of before. It's going to be fun. So one other thing. So stick with me to the end, because in the end, I am going to announce something, and am going to invite you to something. So please stick with me to right to the end. I'll announce that right before I sign off. Okay, so let me talk just a lot about what I've learned this year. If you guys are just tuning in for the first time, go back, listen to the previous podcast. You can kind of binge them all. There's some that are really long. I didn't intend on, I think we had the longest podcast with Michael Gerber ever recorded in our, almost 400, north of 400 episodes. And it was amazing. And I intended for it to go maybe 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, usually, but it went, almost 2 hours, and it was amazing. And so we hope you guys have had a chance to listen to all of that. There's just some nuggets in there that totally inspired me. What I've learned over the years, and really the lesson that I've taken away from this season, and just my year spending a lot of time on personal development. I mentioned to you guys that I joined up with Tony Robbins' inner circle called the Platinum Partnership, and have traveled all over the world. I think I did like 8 or 9 events this year. I was everywhere. It's insane. It was exhausting, to say the least, but it totally changed my life. But what I've discovered about myself is just the idea that the quality of your life is in proportion to the quality of your relationships. And I've met some incredible people. And growing up, I was really introverted, really shy, and wouldn't go out of my way to introduce myself or talk to somebody. And I still have those inclinations. At the same time, some of the most amazing experiences that I've had is coming from knowing and understanding others. And with the podcast, I have a unique opportunity to ask questions, to understand a person, to hear stories, and just build those connections. And it's I don't know, it's such a blessing for me. And I don't know if there's no calculated way in which I got to the point where I was able to do this. It's just, in the end, I look at how powerful the powerful relationships are, and it's what we all seek. and it's just to share one another with each other. We're all different, we're all unique, we all have different experiences and circumstances. It's one of those like paradoxes. I think that you know the idea of connecting with people, the fear, there's this fear associated with it, and it's how we stack up, or what if they knew this, or how I look or how I'm perceived, right? We have this way in which we show up. At the most successful way in which we show up is to be real, is to be ourselves, to be authentic, right? Because it's kind of like there's a spider sense in everybody that detects whether that's BS or not. And so for me, it's recognizing that um, there's some really successful people out there. I don't have to be afraid. But then also at the same time, I look at so many successful people, and I've heard, I mean, with this group that I've been a part of, I've heard so many stories around success, especially in the business world, the investment world, but horrible failures in relationships, in their bodies, right, in their physical well being, their health, right, and it's just one of those things that has caused me to reflect on, there's this, balance of things everybody seeks, but yet nobody ever achieves. And that's where it's this constant refinement process over and over and over. And it's not just on one aspect of our lives, it's on all aspects of our lives. And them being in harmony with one another is really where that fulfillment comes from. But, my point was, within all individuals, we put people on pedestals, that they're this successful person, that they've accomplished and achieved all these things, but they're human, right? And we all battle the same things, and that's what I'm gonna talk about, because we're always working on ourselves. We always have those opportunities, but unless we realize it, it's going to be very difficult to suppress the real us. It's eventually gonna come out, so we might as well just accept it from the get go, right? But what I've learned is that I love who I am. I don't know if I've always believed that, and I love the relationships that I have, and I feel so fortunate and grateful for that. And the saying that I mentioned in the beginning, trading appreciation for or expectation, or appreciation for expectations, right? It's changed my life, because there's all sorts of things that I expect. I have high standards for myself, high standards for my kids, high standards for my business, and I realize that we're all human beings coming to the table inadequate, subject to failure, right? And instead of me being frustrated or impatient with those that I'm surrounded by, even myself, I'm the most harsh on myself, right? It's to be grateful for them, grateful for who I am, grateful for my opportunities, grateful for my experiences, good, bad, or indifferent. But this is kind of the perspective I go into these new relationships that I have, and I look at, from an entrepreneur perspective. I believe that we're all facing the exact same challenge, right? The exact same problems in relation to getting ahead. They may be at different scales, but it really all comes down to fear, right? And the fear is different, but ultimately fear boils down, right? And so the saying boils down is, you boil salt water, you'll get salt in the end, right? So what everything boils down to is the fear of not being loved, because you are uh, you have this fear of a feeling of not being enough. You don't want people to perceive that you're not enough. You're not enough for this relationship or that relationship. And I think everybody has that, no matter what caliber of person it really is, whether it's amongst your peers, amongst your family, right? It all boils down to that. It's just at different degrees. So these feelings of failure, falling short of expectations, right? It's amazing that we have these rules that we've unconsciously created for what failure is, right? Because failure, we have to define it, but failure can be defined in so many different ways. Failure can be defined as, because most people would say, I'm afraid of failing because of how I will look, and how I will look. People will realize that I'm not smart as I think I am, or they think I am, or that I'm not enough, or that I'm inadequate, or everybody has that, right? Because we all have it in some capacity, right, in the different elements of our life, right? But rewiring yourself to have different rules, because I think we all have these rules, but we've unconsciously created them, as I said. So rewriting the rule of failure, could be, failure is only if I fail to see a lesson in my life's experiences, right? So that's where you have a challenge. and maybe your expectation is for this happen, but maybe it doesn't happen. Well, there's a lesson there. There's something amazing, and failing to see that, I think, is ultimate, ultimate failure. I also heard, something recently which was it blew me away, and it had to do with worthiness, right? And I think that's also something, especially when it comes to the Judeo-Christian world, right? Is we don't want to be unworthy. We don't want to do things, right, that we're that is against this or against that. We have all sorts of rules associated with that. But I heard a new rule, rewriting the rule around worthiness, which is, I'm worthy when I know I've pushed myself beyond my previous limitations. Like that's an incredibly empowering rule, right? And we're not going to get into all the details of it, but we have these rules associated with how we're happy. Well, I'm happy if all of these things happen, right? But you could be happy without that, right? And most people have been happy in the past without those expectations. It's fascinating, right? But we approach life and we approach challenge, and that's never going to end, right? The human experience, I would say, is to constantly have these experiences, right, where we're challenged, we hit these emotional thresholds, and we essentially make a decision in that moment. And there's another saying I really love, which is all you need is 3 seconds of courage and you can change your entire life. Just 3 seconds, because in those 3 seconds, decisions will be made about who you are, what you're capable of, what you want, and knowing that you can overcome whatever it is to get what you want. That would completely change somebody's life, right? But the gap between where we are and where we want to be, right, is ultimately, unused courage. It's not acting right on those opportunities, unused faith, right? Unused faith in ourselves, right? Believing that we're not capable or we're not worthy, right? Or we're inadequate, we're not smart enough, right? But ultimately, making decisions and facing what the world, constitutes as failure, right? In a lot of people's eyes is success. And that's one of those common things I've seen with successful entrepreneurs is they've rewritten the rules associated with what success means and what failure means. And I think it's powerful. And we all face these opportunities to grow. And I heard a talk recently, and it talked about how many examples there are in literature, in religious scripture about vegetation, the idea of fruit and the idea of seeds, right? And I think that there's this process between seed and fruit and continual fruit that's profound. And I believe that that relates a lot to, there's a parallel to our human experience, right? Where we want fruit, we want different results, we want better results. But oftentimes it takes planting a new seed, nurturing that seed, making sure it's in the right environment, fertilizing it, pruning it. And then it gets to the point where it bears fruit. And, it's one of those, and then the fruit, you know, falls off, some of it's eaten, some of it goes right into the soil and essentially has new seeds in there. It grows into new plants. Anyway, it's a fascinating thing to think about. You can get really deep into that, right? But the idea is, in the end, people wanted to circumvent nature, and I think entrepreneurs, especially those that have been successful over and over and over again, right, understand this kind of like vegetation process, right? This plant process, this natural order of things. And what's amazing is that in that order of things, right, you're never going to have the same exact environment. There's going to be different storms. There's going to be a fire. There's going to be, lightning storms, a hurricane, right? But in those storms, things get stronger. And I think oftentimes we're so afraid of storms. We're so afraid of adversity and challenge, and we don't. And we try our best to kind of circumvent or circumvent it because we don't. Again, it goes to this whole failure, right? I don't want to be perceived as incompetent. I don't want to feel that I'm not enough. I don't want to experience failure. I love people when they see that I'm a failure, they're not going to love me. It's weird. It's weird how we just kind of keep coming back to that. Right. But ultimately I would say approaching these storms and recognizing that growth takes place when there is friction. Okay. When we approach that friction, we figure our way through it, not around it, but through it. That's where the growth really, really takes place. So I'm gonna give you guys a story that I think is really interesting. So I went to a relationship course. It's called Relationship Mastery, and it was amazing. And I'm gonna get into just one thing that I experienced. I might get into toward the end. But the one main thing I experienced there is the concept of immersion and conditioning. So there was this. It was a pretty. It was set up this way, but it was a traumatic, I would say, environment in which uh, men kind of got into their like roots of survival, and it was powerful. So it was a kind of a self defense class, but it wasn't self defense and being able to defend yourself. It was self defense by being able to have wired into your nervous system how to incapacitate somebody, and it was profound because of how like shocking it was, but also because of how well I now have like the knowledge of that in me. It's powerful. So the guy that taught it was a former Navy SEAL. He's trained, really high level corporate executives, and you look at the guy and like he's the guy you do not want to. He's the guy that if you went into a dark alley in the middle of the worst situation possible, he's the guy you would want to go with. And you look at him, he's just his voice, his like presence, he's freaking huge, like sleeve tattoos, like a guy you do not want to mess with. When he speaks, like everybody shuts up. There's a room of hundreds of men that were completely silent when he was speaking. But they started off this event by having a very kind of faint light in the room. And then they played these very traumatic videos, so you guys can fast forward 15 seconds if you don't want to hear these traumatic videos. But one of the videos I remember was of a store clerk, and he was being robbed at knife point, not at gunpoint, but at knife point, and he tried to defend himself and was unable to defend himself, and ultimately the attacker knifed him, stabbed him to death, and it was all visual. I mean, there's nothing that was edited, and man, like my heart sank. Like it was like one of those, like yeah, your jaw dropped to the floor, and you should see like the room was just it was like perfectly silent because of how traumatizing it was. Then it showed somebody on the subway, multiple people trying to get this guy that had a gun, and they all tried to go after him, and he ultimately shot them. It was traumatic, and during that, you had an interesting experience among this group of men. There were one of them. There was two of them total. One of them completely passed out. Like we were all standing at the time, like completely passed out. It was crazy. And then another one passed out. And you hear these big thumps on the floor. It was super traumatizing. But he showed us that to really create the environment to plant a seed. Again, this goes to that same type of example, right? And the seed that he started to plant was uh, it was one of the most powerful things I've ever experienced. And he cited a book, I think it's by Daniel Coyle, called The Talent Code. And in the Talent Code, it talks about the process of establishing what's called myelin. It's these different ways in which your brain is wired to do certain things by habit. It's the whole unconscious competence where you have the Tiger Woods, the Michael Jordans, these professional people, musicians. There's another example where you've conditioned yourself over and over and over and over that you do not think when you perform. Okay, you've done all the work. It's built into your nervous system, and you go out and you know exactly what to do. You don't consciously know what to do. Unconsciously, you know exactly what to do. So he, in this book, explains this Russian tennis camp and how they practice a specific way, and the practice was done with intensity but in slow motion. So what we learned to do is in this moment, in this environment, it was over the course of a couple hours. We were essentially we're partnered up, and we practiced these different incapacitating strikes with one another. So the strikes looked like it was to the esophagus, to the gosh, the artery in your neck. I'm spacing it right now, but the solar plexus. Breaking ankles from the outside and inside, the groin, how to strike the groin properly, strike the neck from the back, strike ankles from the back as well. So side, back, and other side. So it was so intense, and it was a strike over and over and over again. But we did this over and over and over again, right? To nurture that seed so that if we ever were in the situation in which our family was in jeopardy, that we were attacked, that we essentially had our life on the line, that our nervous system will remember what we were learning, and we would be able to take out an eye, take out a throat, incapacitate somebody with their, taking out their legs, their groin, their solar plexus, their esophagus, right? This soft spot right below your neck where if hit, a person cannot breathe, right? So it was super traumatizing. But the point of me saying this was the idea of conditioning, right? Is building in habits, building in ways of doing things. And this comes down to really the process of making decisions, right? Conditioning ourselves that when we have a challenge, when something presents itself, you have stimulus as far as the event happening, then you have response, which is how you react. Uh, you can build in strategically a way in which you approach challenge, a way in which you approach difficulty, a way in which you approach your spouse, your children, your business opportunities. And if you strategically do that and then you condition it, you follow a certain process, you can, essentially change your life. That's where everything happens between all the stimulus that we have, which is normally the same every single day, and then the responses that we have to it, which are mainly unconscious. Okay, you can start to rewire that unconscious and respond to things, rewire things, redefine the rules of things. And this has to do with every part of our life. It has to do with our physical well-being. It has to do with our relationships. It has to do with work. It has to do, I mean, our spirituality, the full spectrum, right? We can completely change our life with this process. And so that's really the thing that I've seen in entrepreneurs is whether they've done this consciously or they've kind of experienced things, right? They've been able to redefine how they approach challenges. They've been able to redefine what they do in certain circumstances. What's the proper way to respond, and then what's the improper way to respond. Carnally, right? Our response is typically going to be survival, right? We're going to defend ourselves. We're going if somebody critiques us, we're going to be like they'll attack back, right? Or if somebody is condescending, right? Or they criticize us in the workplace, right? We're gonna fire back, right? If we make a mistake, we're gonna blame other people. Like these are the carnal instincts that cause us to respond that way to protect ourselves, right? Protect ourselves from getting hurt and feeling that we're not enough and feeling that we're not loved, right? So this is where you have to redefine that because you're gonna respond to it anyway. But between that stimulus and response is where a totally new life is available to you, right? So the idea is making these decisions over and over and over again is going to give you essentially different results. Now, I'm gonna give you an example with my 5 year old. So here in the office, about a little over a year ago, one of my guys and I bought um, like a golf simulator, and we have been looking one for a while, and we have a massive office space. I mean, we lease out about 10,000 square feet. We have 30,000 total. But the reason why we have such a massive office space is because we get a great deal on the office, right? So, several years ago, there were new owners. We were about to move. They, essentially came to us with this like sweetheart deal where we're going to get almost triple the square footage with less monthly cost than the new place that we were moving. So it was amazing, right? So we've been here. We're actually have one more year left, and then we're probably going to move. But the reason why I'm saying this is because we have this golf simulator in our office, and it's been amazing. I've totally taken this whole talent code thing and practice just 10 minutes 3 or 4 times a week, and it totally works anyway. But I brought my 5 year old son in, and my 5 year old son, it's so amazing to have kids. I mean, it's one of the blessings of my life, and something I do not appreciate as much as I should. But with my 5 year old son, I had him do exactly what I had learned at these self defense courses. Not obviously not like breaking an ankle or smacking a groin. I would not do that. My wife would crush me if I did that. But anyway, maybe when he's older. but from a slow motion, from an intensity standpoint. And it was fascinating to watch, fascinating to experience, because I had him slowly walk up and one more step. And for a 5-year-old, this is painful to do anything in slow motion. But one step, step, another step, get his feet in the right location, get his grip right, come down, lean over the ball, look to where he's going to hit, look at the back of the ball, and do everything in slow motion. And I had him do it, 5 times before he hit a real ball. And it's amazing just the results of that. So physically, right, it's, there's not much on the line. Okay. But this applies to every other aspect of life. If you're intentional about it, you can completely rewire things. All right, so let me kind of move on, because what I'm trying to get across to you guys is this whole idea of entrepreneurship and success, right? Is um, essentially understanding ourself, understanding our behavior. And it all starts with planting new seeds, nourishing those seeds, having patience, and then seeing where things, transpire. And it's going to happen most likely in ways that people don't think. This relationship is created, that relationship is created, but it all starts with that planting of a seed. And I would say those seeds are the opportunities that you have between stimulus and response. And I believe that as you understand the significance of the decisions that you have on a daily basis, now it comes down to reverse engineering the day, reverse engineering decision. It could be as simple as showing up differently at the office. It can be showing up differently when you come home. It could be showing up differently for the holidays, right? You're gonna have some major opportunities to do that, where you have also, you see family, and it's amazing how people resort to who they were when they were a child, and they kind of conform to how they are with their family. It does not have to be that way. You can show up completely different. You can show up with a different state, a state of loving, instead of the state that we're all comfortable and familiar with. There's always opportunities to be different in those moments, and this is the idea behind, I would say, the different types of mastery. I've spoken about this before, right? There's 3 forms of mastery: cognitive mastery, emotional mastery, and physical mastery. What I've seen out there is today we have an immense amount of knowledge. It's everywhere. It's at our fingertips. We can have access to just the heaps and heaps and heaps of information. But having knowledge, or having the access to knowledge, will not get us different results. So this brings us to the second level of mastery, right? Which is emotional mastery. It's understanding the positive emotions and the negative emotions associated with the information you now have available to you. And this is where you get to connect to, really, if you use information and try to get new results and fail, right? What emotions are going to take place, and then how do you kind of redefine the rules associated with those emotions in order to have a different experience. All right, and doing that over and over and over, conditioning that, leads to physical mastery. It's kind of like you've purged old habits and you've replaced them with new habits. And then it's the continual conditioning and reprogramming and rewiring and reinforcing those habits, whether it's how you eat, whether it's how your day goes, whether it's how you show up as a father, whether it's how you show up as a friend, as a son or daughter, as a sibling. It applies to everything in life. How you show up as a colleague, right? You have the circumstances, you have that environment, but you can plant a new seed. You can nourish differently. You can prune differently, right? All sorts of different vegetation out there. Some require a lot of water, some require no water. Weeds, right? Some grow really quick, some grow really slow. Some take years to bear fruit, some produce fruit in one season, right? There's all sorts of different circumstances that we have. However, we have something that separates us from just the natural order of life. We have the ability to choose. We can choose what seeds we plant. We can choose how to nurture differently, observe, prune, maybe uproot and replant, right? There's those choices that we have that we get to confront every single day, right? And again, this going to the purpose of me explaining this is what I've discovered in entrepreneurs, right? That really successful people, and I'll go back to the relationship mastery I went to, this is where so many successful people were there. I mean, I can name businesses, I can name even some people, which I won't, right? But these are like billionaires, multi-hundred millionaires, right? That were so successful in certain areas of their life, but were either in horrible shape physically or had horrible relationships, right? And really, goes to the saying I mentioned, right? It's having these successes without fulfillment, and really fulfillment comes from just a few areas, right? It's relationships. Number one, I think that's where the ultimate that type of relationship, an intimate relationship, a partner, right? That is where I would say a lot of life's fulfillment comes from. Not everything, right? But I would say it's one of those primary ingredients that if you don't have it, right, it's going to be very challenging, if not impossible, to have a truly fulfilling life. And so having relationships, right, especially with male and female, where they're completely wired different, yet they both think each other is the same. And again, I won't go into that, right? But it's this idea of wanting to have a fulfilling relationship and being willing, right, to approach that challenge in a new way, right? Being able to rewire the rules where you're not afraid of not being enough or not being loved, that you get to the point where you're generous regardless of the circumstances. It's not this horse trading, right? Where I do this, but I'm only going to do that if she does that, or he does this and then I'll do that. Right. That's where things just get off the rails. And that's why, you look at all the different aspects of life, and entrepreneurs face challenges in all those different regards. Right. But yet the equation and the ingredients are all the same. Okay, just different application. So it's approaching challenge and recognizing that there is this ideal outcome, but understanding the actual seed, nurture, prune. If you understand that process, you can start making decisions today. It's not that life's going to change overnight, right? These are going to be some decisions that are going to be really hard, right? But then if you can rewire yourself, if you can condition yourself, right, then it's going to be easier and easier and easier. But then you're going to want to get to a new level and then another level. So the process will never end. It's this infinite game. It's going to happen. The infinite game. The purpose of the game is to keep on playing, right? And this is a game that we're going to play for the rest of our life. There's not an end to it. And so I think that's probably the first thing you should, be aware of, right? Is there, even though there's fruit in the end, right? It's like you're gonna have a storm that's gonna blow all the fruit off, and you're gonna start somewhere else, right? So it's one of those things where it's a constant, right? But there are some things we can be aware of, so that we can start today getting different results. So I'm gonna now talk about my invitation to you guys. These are the events I've gone to this year have been life changing for me. It's helped me view things different. It's exposed some stuff in me that I really wasn't happy about, and it's helped my relationships, with my spouse first and foremost, but not without difficult conversations and realizations that I've had and she's had, with my kids especially. Just the way in which I would respond and way in which I would show up sometimes, man, it causes this whole year has really caused me to reflect on, my life, what I want, where I'm at, uh, 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 being appreciative and grateful for everything, right? And using that as the focus as opposed to what's missing or what's somebody not doing, not what are they doing. It's allowed me just to introspect over and over and over again and really rewire myself. And I'm not done. There's events I'm going to go to next year, but I wanted to invite you guys to an event. And it's an event that I took my daughter, who turned 15, at the event just a few weeks ago in Miami. And I took a great friend of mine and colleague, Nate Butler, who's in my office, one of our advisors. And these were life changing experiences for them, and in way different ways, as you can imagine. But then my experience of it as well was different. This is the fourth time I've attended this specific event, and I walked away from it with something completely different, and empowering. It was amazing. I want to invite my podcast audience, the Well Standard podcast audience, to a physical event this coming March. And I believe the dates are, when is it? March 12th through the 15th. And it's in San Jose, California. And I would like to not only invite you, but I want to meet you there. Depending on how many people end up coming, I'm going to arrange kind of a meeting, whether it's at a hotel or at the event itself, so we can all meet up and discuss. So we'll probably be after the event has started. But I can't wait. I can't wait to go again. I'm going to bring some people from my office. It's going to be a great event. So I would like to invite you, the audience. So if you guys head over to thewealthstandard.com, I'm going to have some information on there on how you can essentially go um, and yeah, and register, and it has all sorts of information on there for you. So head over to thewealthstandard.com. In this episode's post, the blog post, you will see a link. All you gotta do is click on that link, and it is pretty self-explanatory from there on out. Now, this is an event that some pretty famous people have been to and go to. So most notably, Serena Williams, Hugh Jackman, Anthony Hopkins. This is the event that Mark Benioff, who is the founder of Salesforce, to whom I pay a significant amount of money each year. I actually just wrote the check a couple days ago. He's a billionaire, right? Because of creating Salesforce and a lot of those ideas, but also the courage to leave Oracle and to start his new journey came from attending this event. I believe that in each of you there is something that is there to be unleashed. It's ready. That seed is there, and discovering it, right, is usually uh, possible when you unplug yourself from the norms, unplug yourself from your daily routine, and you plant yourself in an environment that is designed to essentially bring this out of you. So it's a Tony Robbins conference called Unleash the Power. It's his primary event. I don't think Tony is going to be doing these conferences for a lot longer. He might be. I might be totally wrong, right? But his it's intense. You guys will see, and it's just an incredible experience that I've been blessed to attend a number of times. And I want to give that gift to you. I want to invite you guys to come. And if you have the means, I think some of the tickets are just a few $100, but don't sit up in the nosebleeds. I would say purchase those tickets that give you, make that investment in yourself and for every aspect of your life. Because as I mentioned, this applies to them all. And I would love to see you too, and love to hang out with you and rub shoulders and brainstorm. And anyway, I'd love to give that gift to you. So that's my invite. Hope you guys can go over to thewealthstandard.com and click on the link. It's gonna be awesome. So again, it's March 12th to 15th in 2020, and it's in San Jose, California. So I'd love to see you guys there. All right, that's it for this episode. Hope you guys have gotten something out of it. I believe that within all humans is something super special, and the fact that you guys are on a podcast, listening, educating yourself. Okay, it's the cognitive mastery. I don't think you're going to change your life by listening to a podcast. It's the application of that knowledge that's really going to start to change things for you. And I know that you don't have to go to conferences, right, in order to have the experience of physical mastery, but this is a way to accelerate that process. So I'd love to see you guys there. All right, that's it. Next week, please tune in. We got some cool guests coming up. Again, hope you guys had an amazing Thanksgiving. I feel very grateful to you for the support I've received over the years. It's humbling. And, I appreciate just the emails that are sent, the thumbs up that are sent, the listens. It makes me just incredibly grateful and appreciative that there are those out there that want to take their life to new heights and make a bigger difference, not just for themselves but for those that they surround themselves with. So I'm super appreciative of you guys. Thank you for all that you do for me. All right, that's it. We'll see you next week. Take care.